Just before the day Hyundai could graduate from middle school, he was going about his day walking like any ordinary human. Suddenly he tripped. Somehow his soul got separated from his body, and he found himself sinking deeper and deeper. The next thing he knew, he was in hell. He got scared as his eyes met ferocious and vicious monsters locked in brutal combat with one another. The horrifying part was that the losers ended up being devoured. Dae-sung somehow stayed in hiding and survived without eating for 10 days straight. Wait, was that even possible? The strange thing about this place was the absence of any day or night cycle. When our hero finally reached his breaking point, his only option for survival was to consume the rotten, uncooked meat left behind by the monsters. Disgusting as it was his only way to stay alive. Over time, he gradually adapted to his harsh environment. He began to strike back at the monsters that saw him as prey, using mere pebbles from the ground, somehow managing to drive them away. With no other option, he was forced to fight, relying on anything he could find and turning it into a makeshift weapon. Tears fell from his eyes as he missed his mother, and in that moment of grief, he vowed not to succumb to despair. As the days blurred together, a moment came when he decided to bid farewell to his humanity. He started from the bottom, clawing his way up. The meat that once disgusted him now became a rare luxury, something he learned to appreciate for survival. One day as he was eating, a panel unexpectedly appeared before him. It revealed that he had risen to level 3. At that moment, it all felt like a game. As 7 years flew by, he reached level 24. With this level of strength, he could easily one-shot the creatures that had once seemed like ferocious monsters. After enduring 24 years, he successfully crafted a sword from a stone collected from a dragon knight. However, time did not stand still. It flowed like a gentle breeze. In his 51st year, Dae-sung accomplished the formidable feat of slaying an elder dragon. By his 79th year, he finally found his way to the Demon Lord, the very creature that had dragged him into this hellish existence, and most importantly, without consent. He effortlessly slashed through the bugs guarding the Demon Lord's lair. Even the gatekeeper stood no chance against the aged yet surprisingly youthful protagonist. He threatened the guard, demanding that he politely open the gate, or else his remains would be fed to the monsters of this so-called hell. However, the guard was far from cooperative, and put up a bit of a struggle, taking the situation as a personal affront to the Demon Lord's honor. He went on a rampage. As he trash-talked, he suddenly felt something pierce through him. When he looked down, he discovered a massive hole in his chest. Dae-sung, unfazed, merely remarked that this noisy guard was irritating him. Meanwhile, the floating skeleton Fireball, likely his pet, asked if he wasn't worried that the Demon Lord would retaliate for killing his guard and whether he really intended to take over hell. However, he dismissed the Fireball's concerns, stating that he had no interest in something like becoming a stupid ruler. He explained that 80 years had passed since he was dragged into this place, and every monster he had faced had been remarkable, each with fascinating stories and reasons for their presence in hell. This is why he wanted to confront the Demon Lord and ask why he brought him here. The Fireball found his method of inquiry rather foolish and suggested there might have been a more polite way to approach the situation. It proposed that he should fall to his knees and beg for forgiveness. Yet he remained resolute, insisting that he would resort to violence in response to the suffering he endured, especially since he was brought here without any notion of consent. With that, he grasped his sword and charged toward the Demon Lord, only to suddenly find himself in a hospital. He panicked, wondering if this was all a dream, especially since he hadn't dreamt of Earth in ages. Nearby, he saw children playing, and he realized that by his own physique, he appeared quite weak, unable to move his body. He convinced himself that this must be a lucid dream. Just then his mother opened the door. Trembling at the sight of her son awakened after 30 long years, she burst into tears and hugged him tightly. But Dae-sung felt a wave of disdain for this dream, finding it incredibly childish. To his surprise, it turned out that he actually did slay the Demon Lord and became the absolute ruler of this hell. When his Fireball companion asked what he planned to do next, a sudden message appeared, inquiring if he wished to return to Earth. For all those 80 years, all he had wanted was to escape this very place. Without wasting a moment, he quickly accepted the offer and suddenly he found himself in the hospital, having awakened from a comatose state after 30 long years. The doctor checked his eye reflexes and offered positive gestures to his mother, reassuring her that rehabilitation treatment would get her son back in shape in no time. For his mother, this was a blessing. But for Dae-sung, it felt like a curse. The thought of returning to life after wasting 30 years in bed now in such a frail state was utterly devastating. Unacceptable to him, he becomes increasingly agitated, wondering if his entire journey to hell has been nothing more than a dream. The people nearby grow scared of him as he starts to act like a psychotic patient. Overwhelmed by frustration and confusion, he threatens the doctor not to come near him, but when the doctor advances, our hero bites him like a wild beast, demanding to know what has happened to his body. He questions if he has been paralyzed or poisoned, desperately hoping this is just a nightmare. In his madness, he tumbles off the bed, which only deepens his mother's worry. He reflects on the 80 years of continuous struggle he endured in hell, feeling as if all of it had been wasted. Even in his darkest moments there, he had never lost hope of escaping, and now he yearns to return. Staff members are summoned immediately, grasping both of Dae-sung's arms to force him back onto the bed. As he peeks through the window, he sees a massive wormhole opening up in the sky. Confused and desperate, he questions his fate, wondering if his life in hell had merely been a dream he experienced while in a coma. When he refuses to calm down, the anesthesiologist uses an injection to put him to sleep. Then, as his senses return, he finds himself watching a news channel on the TV, which confirms his suspicions. The sight he had seen was indeed a gate, and a hunting team has been dispatched to clean up the monsters. The leader of the team sends reports to a man who has come to see him. The man appears shocked and overjoyed to find him awake. Still feeling confused, Dae-sung asks who he is, only to realize in a flash of recognition that this is his friend Chanho. Chanho informs him that he has been in this state for 10 years. He explains that a decade ago, while on his way home, Dae-sung suddenly fell unconscious and collapsed. Since that moment, he has been lying in this hospital bed. Upon hearing 10 years, Dane feels a mix of confusion and relief. He had thought 30 years had passed. What irritates him most, however, is the realization that he spent 80 years in hell. Chanho shares that his mother has endured a great deal, working 3 jobs to cover his hospital expenses. He encourages him to take charge of his life again, revealing that he has a job opportunity lined up for him as well. As our demon king is wheeled outside by his mother seeking some fresh air, he feels a heavy sense of responsibility and a deep hatred for his body, which cannot even move on its own. Suddenly 2 men appear, demanding the money his mother borrowed. She apologizes and pleads for just 1 more month, but the thugs remain unmoved. In a moment of aggression, one of the thugs slams her, threatening her with violence. Tears stream down her face as she begs them to stop humiliating her in front of her son, her voice trembling with desperation. However, the thug pays no attention to her pleas. He rolls up his sleeves and starts beating the poor woman. Witnessing his mother's suffering ignites a fierce rage within Dae-sung, so he starts calling them bugs and hurling insults at them. When one of the gangsters grabs him by the sleeve, his mother desperately urges him to apologize, begging the thugs to let her son go by reminding them that he is just a child. Dong refuses to give in. Adopting a hardened expression, the thug, smirking, throws him to the ground with a forceful shove. After that, the gangster delivers a brutal beating. As he struggles to control his anger and yearns for his old body, a sudden quest notification pops up before him in the status window. Without a moment's hesitation, he hastily accepts it, recognizing that he has little choice in the matter. The status window had been his lifeline, allowing him to endure his time in hell on his own. As soon as he acknowledges the quest, everything around him halts, as if time itself has come to a standstill. The conditions of the quest unfold within the status window. He is instructed to reach a specified point within an hour, with the promise of receiving an elixir of recovery upon success. Driven by determination, he contemplates whether regaining his former strength is possible, and spots a red marker just 10 meters away. He attempts to stand, but with a grin spreading across his face, he begins crawling toward the target. The thought of complaining about something so trivial disgusts him. After all, he is the one who has already conquered hell. Crawling slower than an insect, the centimeters stretch into meters, and the meters feel like endless kilometers. At this pace, he starts doubting his ability to reach the location in time, yet he strives to stay composed, knowing that in his experience, the system never assigns impossible tasks or quests. As the seconds slip by, he suddenly notices a loophole. Recalling the quest's terms, it dawns on him that the only requirement is to reach the destination, regardless of how he manages to do so. Our crawling hero grows irritated, realizing how obvious the solution had been all along. With his frail hands, he reaches for his wheelchair, moving slowly but steadily until he manages to settle into it. However, only 35 seconds remain. Undeterred, he grips the wheelchair and propels himself forward, refusing to lose hope. He pushes onward and against all odds reaches the location in the final second. With the quest completed, he seizes the reward and quickly consumes it. Almost instantly, a wave of relief washes over him, his pain fades, and though it's only a small fraction, he begins to regain a slight bit of his former physical strength. With the completion of the quest, the time stop effect dissolves. The thugs glance around in confusion, searching for Dae-sung, who has seemingly vanished into thin air. Before they can begin their search, however, the police arrive, apparently having witnessed the entire incident. With no other choice, the thugs flee the scene in a hurry. Later that night, while lying in a hospital bed, the demon lord repeatedly attempts to summon the status window, but all efforts prove futile. He has no idea how it opened earlier. Desperate, he tries different commands like quest and missions, but in the end he abandons the attempt. His mind fixates on the need for new quests, hoping they will help him regain his strength before the thugs reappear. Suddenly, a strange noise breaks the silence, and he finds himself floating in a place known as the Pantheon. Initially, he dismisses it as a nonsensical dream, but it quickly becomes apparent that this is no illusion. He has been summoned here to fulfill some kind of task. Without hesitation, he requests another quest, and a punching bag, or more accurately, a punching monster, materializes before him. He does as instructed, and upon completing the task, he is rewarded with a memory chip. No sooner is the quest finished than another appears, this time requiring him to run 10 kilometers. The quests continue to roll in, one after the other, and with each completed task he earns yet another reward. For 10 days straight, he pushes through, completing quest after quest, yet only manages to accomplish 55% of the overall implementation. Frustration builds as he tires of these low-level tasks, and he finally demands a proper challenge. In response, the system grants him a new quest to kill a crying demon. Suddenly, a bolt of thunder strikes before him, and the crying demon materializes. The so-called Demon King recalls how close he came to death when facing this opponent in the past and feels a rush of excitement at the chance for a rematch. The thunder-covered monster lets out a deafening growl and launches into the duel with a ferocious claw attack. Dae-sung barely dodges in time, fully aware that a single strike would reduce him to smithereens. He leaps forward, aiming to strike, but the monster effortlessly swats him away, sending him crashing to the ground. Blood spills from his mouth as he struggles to stand, the humiliation of being tossed around by a crying demon gnawing at his pride. The battle drags on, with Dae-sung, a demon lord who should be feared as a villain, forced into a frustrating game of dodging. But eventually his luck runs out, and the demon catches him, gripping him tightly in its claws. In that desperate moment, Dae-sung recalls how he crushed the monster in their first encounter. He had nearly forgotten that he could summon a sword. Without hesitation, he calls one to his hand, and slices through the demon's left claw in a swift, decisive motion. Without mercy, Dae-sung swiftly sends the demon back to where it came from, as though it were nothing more than an insect. With the quest completed, he finds himself back in the hospital room. Morning has already arrived. He opens the window, the sound of which stirs his mother awake. Dazed, she asks who is standing beside her, only to be shocked when she sees Dae-sung in front of her, his physique now resembling that of a bodybuilder. The hospital staff responsible for his rehabilitation are left speechless. According to their expectations, his recovery should have taken at least 6 months. It's beyond comprehension for them how Dae-sung achieved such remarkable progress in just 15 days. His mother, still worried about her son, expresses her concern, but the doctor gently reassures her, calming her nerves by stating, "There is nothing to fear." Meanwhile, Dae-sung feels the effects of his quests, noticing a significant improvement as some of his strength returns. He stretches, glancing around the room until he spots his mother speaking to a nurse. Tears fill her eyes as she thanks the nurse, who in turn offers her comfort, acknowledging her struggle and empathizing with her situation. Seeing this, Dae-sung realizes just how difficult the past 10 years must have been for his mother. His heart tightens with emotion, and as he clenches his fists, he silently vows to protect her, now that he has finally returned. He heads to the washroom and shouts Pantheon. Instantly his soul is drawn into the Pantheon. Upon arrival, he asks whether the system can accelerate the implementation process. The system responds affirmatively, allowing him to select the difficulty level for the random quests. Recalling his status as the Demon Lord, he boldly sets the difficulty level to Hell, the highest and most challenging tier available. In response, a dark orb materializes before him. As it shatters, the sight that emerges leaves him wide-eyed in astonishment. Before him stands none other than the absolute ruler of Hell, an exact mirror image of Dae-sung, but in his full strength. Dae-sung summons his sword, excitement coursing through him at the prospect of battle. Without wasting a moment, his replica lunges forward. Launching a fierce overhead attack, the weakened Dae-sung barely manages to block the blow. Feeling the strain, the replica maintains the offensive, striking from every angle, searching for a weakness in Dae-sung's defenses. Overwhelmed by the sheer power of his doppelganger, he realizes that the longer this fight drags on, the more it works against him. Suddenly the replica finds an opening and thrusts his hand toward Dae-sung, sending him flying across the arena. Breathing heavily, Dae-sung mutters that the replica feels more like the genuine article at this point. Yet with a smirk forming on his lips, he seems to have a trick up his sleeve ready to turn the tide. He activates his skill, blood neutralization, rendering himself immune to his double's attacks. Even when slashed by the sword, he feels nothing and swiftly shifts the momentum of the battle, slamming the replica's face into the ground. However, this advantage is short-lived. To his astonishment, the replica is not so easily bested. It too possesses the same skill. The battle resumes with renewed intensity, and soon Dae-sung finds himself stabbed by the sword, the pain a stark reminder of the stakes. Meanwhile, a cleaning lady approaches the washroom, ready to open the door after receiving no response from inside. Just as she reaches for the handle, she is abruptly summoned to the third floor on an urgent basis. Back in the Pantheon, Dae-sung feels cornered. The weight of potential defeat presses down on him, and he realizes that if he loses now, all his hard work will have been in vain. Desperation fuels his thoughts as he searches for a way to turn the tide, even if it requires a stroke of luck. He quickly accesses his inventory and pulls out a nutritional tonic, one of the rewards he received for completing quests. This potion has the remarkable ability to restore 20% of his stamina. Realizing that 5 bottles would fully replenish him to 100%, a flicker of hope ignites within him. In the heat of battle, he decides to take the risk and chugs down 1 bottle, feeling the rejuvenating effects surge through his body. Interrupted by his fake double, our hero doesn't hesitate and fearlessly launches his fist. Disregarding his low health, he sends his double flying with a single punch. Our hero's confidence is quickly restored. Without wasting a moment, he pulls out 2 more tonics and chugs both bottles. His double, however, doesn't take kindly to this, and nearly catches him with a vicious roundhouse kick. Skillfully evading the attack, he downs a 3rd tonic. They are given no chance to pause as they exchange blows at a speed too fast for the eye to follow. Meanwhile, our protagonist manages to finish a 4th tonic, yet to his frustration, even after recovering significantly, he still can't seem to defeat his doppelganger, who wastes no time in trapping him in a chokehold. A nasty smile spreads across its face as its blade hurtles toward our demon king. As a last resort, our guy executes a 200 IQ plan to completely turn the tables. His double shredded abs are pierced by the original's blade, leaving it baffled as its own weapon disappears into Dae-sung's inventory. With a cheeky smile, our protagonist laughs at his previously overconfident doppelganger. Watching it collapse to its knees, he savors the last-second victory his gamble secured. Upon completing the Hell difficulty quest, a blazing blue window proclaims that the user has achieved a 100% implementation rate, and that his body is now restored to its peak. As a bonus, he even gains the ability to use the hell system on Earth. Suddenly, his hospital clothes are torn apart. The sight of his battle-scarred body triggers a flood of memories, reminding our demon king of all the suffering that brought him to this point, giving him a sense of déjà vu. Nevertheless, when he orders the system to return him to Earth, a panel appears asking if he wants to read unread messages. Upon selecting yes, the messages congratulate him on becoming a monarch. It's explained that after the monarch left, the heavenly beings took control of hell, leaving the demons trapped. Realizing the implications, our protagonist scoffs at the very hell that stole 80 years of his life, now asking for his help. With a cheeky grin, the monarch of hell defiantly flips off his subjects, cursing at them in vengeful satisfaction. He orders the system to exit him from the Pantheon, leaving the hordes of monsters in hell stunned as they realize their fate is sealed. Back in the hospital, our guy is casually performing insane one-handed vertical push-ups while his mother and the doctor watch in silent awe. Using his Sherlock Holmes-level deduction skills, the doctor concludes that Dae-sung has seemingly awakened, but his mother still struggles to believe her son's unbelievable transformation. Despite the doctor's reassurance, she somberly expresses her desire to understand how this could have happened. Eventually, the doctor suggests she visit the Awakener Association, which her son overhears. The scene shifts to our protagonist and his mother in a taxi. As he reflects on her conversation with the doctor, he wonders what his mom might be hiding from him. Adding to his confusion, he gazes out the window wondering what happened on Earth while he was comatose. At home, his mom mentions she'll be back soon and leaves. Entering the house, he is surprised to find a girl with cotton candy-colored hair taking money out of a drawer. He racks his brain, trying to recall who this mysterious girl could be. Just then his mother rushes in, breaking the awkward silence. She reveals the girl is Han Jisoo, his sister. The realization dawns on him that the girl he couldn't recognize this whole time is his own sibling. Noticing her bratty daughter taking money again, their mom is visibly annoyed as Jisoo ignores her and gets ready to leave. Meanwhile, our big brother is still reeling from the shock of not recognizing his only sister. As she brushes past him, she bitterly reminds him of how the last 10 years have been hell for their mother and her. Dae-sung looks down, somber and regretful that he couldn't do anything to help. As she heads out, their mom asks her to at least say where she's going. Then a loud voice catches everyone's attention. Once again, the debt collectors have returned. They threaten to break in if the door isn't opened on the count of 3. Everyone goes silent, but our boy is furious, ready to dish out some revenge. Growing tired of waiting outside, the man in the silver suit kicks their door. Mom pleads with her daughter to come back inside, but she remains fearless. The silver suit turns to the thug accompanying him, wondering if they should just break down the door. To their surprise, Jost steps out and complains that they're being too damn annoying. Momentarily speechless, the silver suit concludes she must be the daughter. Seizing the opportunity, he angrily rushes into the house, while his ugly lecherous partner leers at Joe. Their mother, trembling profusely, apologizes as she takes cash out of her purse. But a moment later, the money is in the air as the silver suit, furious at the measly sum, viciously slaps her, knocking the frail woman to the ground. Witnessing his mother being mistreated, our hero, seething with rage, launches the silver suit flying with a single satisfying punch. The fat and ugly thug asks what's happening, while the once arrogant man in the silver suit cries to his daddy about being bullied. The thug can only stare in shock as our demon lord thanks them both for conveniently coming straight to him. After a brief taunt, the thug is seized by the jaw as our gag prepares to deliver a much-deserved beatdown on behalf of his mother. He smacks the thug in the face, not 5, not 10, but 100 times before the brute collapses to the ground in pain. Beaten and bloodied, the thug spots a wooden chair. In a desperate move, he grabs it by the leg and tries to smash our boy, but like a total badass, our guy punches right through the chair, sending the thug flying into the wall and landing next to his partner. Panicking, the man in the silver suit pulls out a dagger and mocks our boy. Unfazed, our protagonist calmly grabs the guy by the wrist and twists it savagely like Play-Doh in vengeance for striking his mother. The man cries out in agony, clutching his now useless floppy hand. The ugly fat thug warns him that he won't get away unscathed. Instead, more savage than the two rascals combined. Our Demon King presents a simple solution: leave no witnesses. Just as he's about to finish off the thug, he freezes at the sound of his mother's scream. She begs her son to stop, and the two debt collectors, now in tears, scramble out of the house. They stumble back to their car, discussing in disbelief how a hospitalized kid could get so strong after spending 10 years comatose. Worried about the consequences of failing their job, the silver suit anxiously asks his partner what they should do. Nursing his wounds, the ugly big guy tries to change the subject, but the silver suit quickly interrupts, having just spotted Dae-sung's sister. Back at home, Mom explains that after he collapsed, she had to sell the house and the store. She goes on to say that once those savings ran out, she took loans from 3 different institutions. Unlike the original amount borrowed, the interest compounded into an unpayable sky-high debt. Curious about Jua, our protagonist learns that she had to drop out of school and work at a restaurant to help pay off the debt. With teary eyes, his mother reveals how his sister worked tirelessly day and night just to support him. Gritting his teeth, he laments that she shouldn't have had to leave school. His mom then explains that despite Ju's efforts, she wasn't earning enough and has been going somewhere unknown for the past few months. Heartbroken at his family's suffering, our guy wishes they had left him to die, but his mother gently reassures him. The somber silence that follows is interrupted by a phone call. Seeing that it's the debt collectors, our boy tells her to hand it over. Frustrated, he mocks them, but his pupils widen in shock as he hears the bad news. The scene shifts to his sister, bound and duct-taped. The ugly thug shaves her head as he speaks on the phone with our protagonists, threatening him to collect $100 million in 24 hours if he wants his sister to be okay. Furious, our boy grips the phone tightly. When Mom asks what's wrong, he simply tells her he'll be back after a while. His mother warns him against hurting or killing anyone, insisting that his life will be over if he does. But the monarch knows that killing them won't solve anything. Unlike in Hell, to his surprise, just as he mentions the word hell, a fiery panel appears. Reassuring his mom that he won't commit any crimes, our protagonist accepts the offer to obtain a basic skill. Presented with 4 options, he contemplates which choice would be best but ultimately concludes that none of them is particularly noteworthy. Meanwhile, the gangsters continue moving Dae-sung's sobbing sister. As they ride up in an elevator, the ugly thug reminds her of her role as a hostage. Suddenly, sparks fly and the lights go out, bringing the elevator to a halt. Noticing sparks near his feet, the fat guy is taken aback as our protagonist magically flashes into existence. He sarcastically comments that he's come to deliver the money. It turns out our hero picked the Shadow Wraith skill, allowing him to summon a wraith that takes on his form once it has the target's blood. Now that it has located its target, the wraith bashes the silver suit's head into the metallic wall. Meanwhile, the ugly guy panics, realizing Dae-sung has been a hidden awakener all along, shocking his sister in the process, yet the wraith feigns ignorance. When the elevator doors finally open, the fat guy stumbles out, announcing to the gang members that an awakener has broken in, but before he can say more, a swift strike to his nape sends him crashing to the ground with a loud thud. Insulted on their own turf, the gangsters grab their weapons. The wraith menacingly welcomes them. The first guy steps up to attack but quickly finds himself teleported behind, receiving a kick that knocks him unconscious. Thus, Electric Dae-sung wreaks havoc on the mob. Now the last man standing, he approaches Jisoo and checks if she's alright. He quickly removes her restraints and tape, urging her to go home. But she reveals her concern for her dear brother. With a cool aura, he assures her that he'll come to see her after finishing his business. As the elevator door closes on her, the wraith prepares for another beatdown. Grunts of pain echo throughout the halls, where only unconscious bodies are visible. It appears that our hero climbs the stairs, clearing each floor one by one. As he nears another group of gangsters enjoying a smoke, he jokes that everyone is so weak that the lack of challenge frustrates him. Irritated by the insult, the gangsters, like all the previous ones, get absolutely demolished. One of them calls their boss a man covered in tattoos that span his gigantic muscles. The boss answers the phone, berating his subordinate and reminding him never to call when he's relaxing in the sauna. However, the panicked gangster insists that he come quickly. Being ordered to come infuriates the boss even more, but as he hears his underling getting knocked out, he realizes something is wrong. Rising from his seat, he clenches his giant fist in frustration, crushing his phone. Talk about a waste. Meanwhile, back at the gang's headquarters, numerous bloody bodies lie on the ground. The Shadow Wraith approaches another member who begs not to suffer the same fate. However, a wall suddenly explodes open. Caught off guard, Dae-sung turns to see a giant man grasp his face, immediately smashing his head into the ground. The boss expresses his rage about Dae-sung's mess. Meanwhile, our hero reflects on how his mother and sister aren't even surprised by his powers, realizing that others like him also exist. His Shadow Wraith powers allow him to retreat safely. The boss is shocked to see the guy dusting himself off in front of him, causing all the chaos alone. The Shadow Wraith questions whether the boss is also an awakener. The boss proudly grins, promising to send our boy to hell. Hearing the all-too-familiar word, our hero narrows his eyes at the muscular monster, whose clothes burst from his physical enhancement. Not caring about his size, as always, our hero bashes the boss's face and taunts the giant weakling lying caved into a wall. The boss denies being defeated so easily and angrily gets up to launch a counterattack, but he is promptly humbled by a kick to his chiseled face. With a flurry of kicks, our guy gives the boss a brutal beatdown, explaining what true hell is and how much misery it causes. Meanwhile, the giant man can only think of surviving and asks for a timeout. With his soul shattered, the muscular gangster offers money and everything he has in exchange for his worthless life. Hearing about the money piques our guy's interest. He questions the boss about the gang's safe. After pointing our protagonist toward the closet with the safe, the boss flees like a crying little girl. Finally reaching his white car in the parking lot, thinking he is safe, the boss rambles about how he will make sure to hunt our boy down, but his nemesis creeps up behind him whispering that he forgot to ask for the safe's password. Even as the boss goes crazy from fear, the Shadow Wraith torments him one last time, saying he can be reached anytime, anywhere. Later, money magically falls out of a portal in front of our protagonist, totaling over 500 million. Our hero grins like a greedy goblin, thinking of all the things and apartments he can buy with it. He walks into a mall and becomes captivated by a newly launched folding phone, which the shopkeeper mentions is priced at 2.99 million. His curiosity piqued, he checks out another model, one that resembles the Samsung Z Flip. The shopkeeper, hoping to ease the purchase, suggests an installment plan, but Dae-sung without hesitation slaps 5 million won on the counter and buys both models outright. The shopkeeper, with an air of suspicion, accepts the money as though he has either swindled someone or charged more than the fair price. Our devil arrives home casually dropping off his shopping. When his mother calls him to join her for a meal, he replies that he needs to head out. Before she can inquire where he is going, he has already disappeared. In reality, he has been invited to dinner by his friend at a restaurant. Chan-ho is visibly taken aback by Dae-sung's transformation, as his physique has significantly changed since their last encounter just a few days prior. The two begin their meal by sharing a drink. Chan-ho initiates a conversation, asking Dae-sung about his future plans, reminding him that they are no longer the carefree school kids they once were. Dae-sung, however, steers the discussion in a different direction, inquiring how many apartments could be bought with 500 million won. Chan-ho, momentarily surprised, questions if Dae-sung truly has that kind of money, but quickly shifts to discussing the current state of inflation. He explains that unfortunately such an amount would barely be sufficient for a lease on a modest apartment located on the outskirts of the city. This revelation unsettles the demon lord and he anxiously asks how much it would take to buy a place in the city. Chan-ho informs him that it would cost at least 2 billion won, then urges him to relax, reminding Dae-sung that the world has changed drastically since he fell into a coma. Shifting the conversation, Chan-ho gets to the heart of the matter, asking if Dae-sung is awakened. Dae-sung responds that to confirm such a thing, he first needs to understand what awakened actually means. As they exit the restaurant, Chan-ho explains everything. He begins from the very start, recounting how shortly after Dae-sung's coma, mysterious portals known as gates started appearing everywhere. At first the portals were seen as a minor threat and were kept under control. However, things took a dark turn when monsters began escaping from the gates, flooding the earth in what became known as a gate fracture. These monsters wreaked havoc, sparing no one in their path. Humanity fought back but soon discovered that their man-made weapons were utterly ineffective against such foul creatures. Thus, unable to contain his curiosity, interrupts, asking if not even guns or cannons could harm them. Shanhao confirms that it's safe to say normal weapons did nothing. He then continues, explaining that over time, a new type of weapon was discovered, special weapons known as aura weapons. These new weapons, crafted from monster byproducts, proved effective against the creatures. Those capable of wielding them became known as the Awakened Ones, heroes who stood at the forefront when humanity faced near extinction. The saying necessity is the mother of invention rang true as mankind adapted to survive. In an attempt to show off, the Demon Lord pulls out a cutting-edge foldable phone from his arsenal, trying to impress Chansho. But his confidence shatters when he learns that such phones are now being given away for free. Realizing he has been scammed and overwhelmed by embarrassment, Diaz quietly keeps the matter to himself, choosing not to reveal to his friend just how much he actually paid for it. Channo shifts the conversation back to the topic of awakeners, telling Diaz that even if he doesn't use an aura weapon, he can still harness aura to strengthen his body. He then points out that he's heard not only about Diaz's improved physique but also that he recently gave a notorious thug group quite the scare. Diaz, with a hint of bluff, asks Chanhanu if he would still offer him money and have the same attitude toward him if he weren't an awakener, subtly revealing his intentions to exploit their friendship. Chano's temper flares, but before their argument can escalate, a gate fracture suddenly occurs above them and monsters begin pouring out into their midst. As the monsters strike their wooden weapons against the ground, the earth trembles violently, resembling an earthquake. The sheer force sends waves of fear through the nearby citizens, causing them to tremble in terror. The monsters unleash menacing growls, sending humans into a panic as they flee for their lives. Das, however, doesn't recognize these creatures, finding them distinctly different from the ones he had encountered in hell. Wasting no time, Diaz slams his foot into the ground, breaking off a chunk of the road and hurling it toward the approaching monsters. But before the debris can strike, a shimmering shield materializes, blocking the attack. Chanhano quickly reminds Diaz that such weapons are ineffective against these creatures. As one of the monsters closes in on them, Shenho shuts his eyes, convinced they're finished. But the sound of splattering blood forces him to open them again, only to find the monster beheaded. With Dae standing tall, he had proven through sheer force that bare-handed attacks could take these creatures down. Chano can hardly believe his eyes, but as he watches Diaz effortlessly take down an entire group of monsters, he starts to wonder if his friend has awakened to B-class. However, he quickly realizes that now is not the time for such thoughts. He shifts his focus to the safety of the citizens around them. As panic grips the crowd, he raises his voice, urging the terrified people to follow him, assuring them that he knows the way to safety through the sewer system. Just as the people begin to react, they find themselves encircled by the monsters. A little girl gripped by fear starts to cry, and just as she seems about to be attacked, Shano leaps into action, saving her life at the last moment. Seizing the opportunity, Dong steps in to dispatch the monster. With a smirk, he mocks Chanho for getting in his way and urges him to find a place to hide, reminding him that he is still exposed in the open. Taking charge, Chanhu swiftly leads the effort to help the public evacuate to safety. Meanwhile, a young vlogger seizes the moment, starting a live stream of Dong as he fights the monsters single-handedly. The public watches, captivated by the live stream, cheering for Dong's bravery. Suddenly, the vlogger yells out, telling Dae-sung to look behind him. However, it's too late. The Demon Lord gets slammed against a car by one of the monsters, the impact reverberating through the chaos. The vlogger, smirking and laughing, is only focused on his content and views, knowing that a hero getting slammed makes for compelling footage that will surely attract attention. Meanwhile, the crowd manages to escape into the sewers. Chanho reunites the little girl with her mother, who embraces her tightly, tearfully apologizing for the separation. A man turns to Chanho and asks if he plans to go back. Leaving him torn, he grapples with the decision, aware that his friend is still out there fighting against the monsters. The scene shifts back to Dae-sung, who finds himself cornered by the monsters. One of them wears a smirk poised to strike, and the vlogger covers his eyes, believing the hero is finished. To both the vloggers and the monster's astonishment, Dae-sung dodges the attack with agility. He then addresses the monster, thanking it for inadvertently helping him restore a fraction of his mana. In return, he offers the creature a painless death. His voice calm and authoritative, the demon lord shows no mercy as he engages with the monsters, dispatching them with precision. Meanwhile, the viewers of the livestream flood the comments, complaining about the poor image quality and urging the vlogger to move in closer for a better view. Among the viewers, one named Slayer donates 5 million won, promising another 5 million if the vlogger can capture a clear shot of Dae-sung fighting the monsters. The excitement builds as the stakes rise, both for the vlogger and the heroic demon lord. Hearing about the 5 million won donation sends chills down the vlogger's spine. He feels excitement, but his cowardice keeps him from getting anywhere near the action. Meanwhile, Dong continues beheading the monsters with powerful punches, quickly realizing that this relentless fighting consumes a significant amount of his mana. Another viewer comments offering extra money for a clear picture and requesting the vlogger's email. Overwhelmed by the influx of sponsorship notifications, the vlogger experiences a mix of excitement and anxiety, torn between his desire for fame and the fear of what lies before him. The vlogger receives another donation of 20 million won from a viewer who demands detailed information about the hero battling the monsters, promising even more money in return. The scene shifts to several viewers of the livestream, who are engaged in a bidding war over Dong. These individuals, clearly hotshot clan leaders, find him both amusing and impressively strong. Their interest in Dong grows as they witness his prowess, contemplating how they might leverage his abilities for their own gains. On the other side, Dae-sung has dispatched so many monsters that the remaining ones now tremble in fear of him. However, one creature, presumably their leader, kills one of its minions, showing no signs of fear as it prepares to confront Dae-sung. Meanwhile, the vlogger's greed for money has grown to the point where he is now willing to take risks for this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Just as he gathers the courage to close in for a better shot, Chanho suddenly appears, scaring the life out of him as he demands to know why he hasn't evacuated yet. The unexpected encounter causes the vlogger's phone to drop, and his viewers erupt in the comments calling him a loser and a chicken for his cowardice. Chingho drags the vlogger toward the safety of a nearby building, but the kid resists, consumed by thoughts of money and views. As he is forcefully pulled along, a monster approaches, slamming its foot down on his phone, crushing it. In shock, the vlogger loses consciousness, but before any further harm can come to them, Dang intervenes, beheading the monster in a swift motion. As the remaining monsters are dispatched, Dae-sung turns to Chanho, inquiring why his friend returned despite the danger. Chanho expresses his concern, admitting that he grew worried sick about Dong. In response, Dong asks if his friend can wait for about 20 minutes, explaining that he needs to visit a specific place. Chanho reassures him not to worry, mentioning that the clans will be arriving soon. Seeing his friend's cluelessness, Dae-sung promises to fill him in later. He quickly enters. The Pantheon and Chanho watch in confusion as Dae-sung opens a gate. Chanho is left wondering how Dae-sung can open a gate himself and what has happened to him since they last met. Entering the Pantheon, our demon king scoffs, clearly irritated by the condition of his body after such a minor battle. A panel emerges, revealing that his mana reserves sit at a mere 10%. Unhappy with his pitiful mana levels, he searches for a way to rapidly restore them. He soon learns that to regain his strength, he must relive the experiences recorded in his journal, with rewards mirroring the trials he overcomes. A wave of déjà vu washes over him as memories of the journal that kept him sane during his time in hell resurface. Without a second thought, he agrees to the trial. In an instant, a journal materializes before him. Massive gusts of energy explode from the book, signaling the beginning of the challenge. Memories of his suffering rush back into our hero's mind as the journal releases its contents. It bursts into flames, leaving behind a bitter aftertaste from the painful recollections. With a fierce resolve to finally increase his mana, the ruler of hell commands the recreation of page 16, detailing 5 agonizing years in hell. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Chanho escorts the vlogger kid, who awkwardly attempts to fish for details about their hero from his rescuer. In a clumsy move, the kid casually questions where the badass monster fighter has disappeared to. Unfazed, Chanho casts a scornful glance at the spineless kid, wondering aloud why anyone would offer 20 million won just for a photo of his friend's face. Unimpressed with the answer, the kid pretends ignorance, but their conversation is abruptly cut short by a deafening sound that rattles them both. Chanho calmly instructs the kid to follow him in silence toward the gathering evacuees. Feeling his phone vibrate, Chanho reads a message from his leader informing him that, due to it being the weekend, reinforcements will be delayed, urging him to escape as quickly as possible. Distressed by the news, Chanho can only hope his demon-hunting best friend returns soon before it's too late. Meanwhile, in another dimension, our hero finds himself reliving his time in the forest of predators. Gentle winds brush past him, yet he grows uneasy with the eerie silence surrounding him. A panel appears, announcing his task: subjugate 10 white colossi, the divine beings of the forest. Clueless, the innocent Demon King wonders where his foes could be, oblivious to the massive shadow looming overhead. The robot locks onto its target, its eyes glowing with a menacing crimson hue before unleashing a dazzling energy beam. Sensing the danger just in time, our hero narrowly evades the attack, barely avoiding being incinerated. Through the blinding fog, our Demon King spots the white colossus, Righteous, a machine with a face only a mother could love, if it even had one. As he sizes up this so-called divine creation, its hand suddenly hurtles toward him, cutting through the air like a drill. Unimpressed, he responds with a counterattack, his fist slamming into the automaton's tough metallic face. Absorbing the impact of our Demon King's destructive blow, the colossal robot stumbles back. In a final desperate move, its fingers extend like sharp blades, encircling him, but he dodges the projectiles with ease and lands a powerful punch directly on its abdomen. The sheer force of the strike tears the divine machine apart from top to bottom, leaving nothing but scraps and smoke in his path. As he pauses, waiting for the next challenger, his eyes are drawn to a strange red core lying amidst the debris. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Chanho and the vlogger kid arrive at the rooftop, only to be met with the gory sight of slaughtered bodies scattered all around them. Mortified, Chanho notices a gravely injured man still clinging to life. He and the vlogger kid rush over to check on him. With trembling lips, the nearly dead man tries to warn Chanho about the threat behind him. Confused, Chanho turns and finds himself face to face with a giant goblin monster wielding a massive wooden club just a few feet away. Concerned about the injured man, the vlogger kid suggests they move him, but Chanho dismisses the idea, stating the man's time is long gone. He warns the kid against making any wrong moves, so the cowardly boy turns to look at the threat he should be wary of, instantly scaring the crap out of him. Seeing the frozen kid, Chanho tells him to wake up if he isn't intent on dying. With a deafening roar, the giant monster leaps into the air, ready to crush them. But for now, let's revisit the Pantheon, where the ruler of hell is analyzing the giant red ball. It appears that the divine machines can rebuild themselves, becoming stronger and more adapted against their opponents. Numerous panels appear to elaborate on this irritating feature in detail. Quickly catching on, our hero dashes and punches the core, but almost like jelly, his attack is easily repelled. At 3% restoration, he lands atop the core, visibly irritated. With a powerful, rage-fueled punch, he manages to produce only a few sparks of red lightning. Despite the monarch of hell's relentless blows, the core's recovery continues smoothly. Undeterred, however, as the restoration nears 70%, error alarms begin to blare. Just as our guy prepares to deliver a final, decisive blow, a laser beam whizzes past, barely missing him. He turns, realizing that he's been surrounded by other robots the entire time. The Colossi, in a well-coordinated assault, fire from all directions. Dodging the barrage with ninja-like agility, he becomes aware of the dire situation he's in. To make matters worse, the core silently advances to 98% completion. Regardless, the ruler of hell refuses to give up. Pushing through the chaotic onslaught of lasers, he manages to reach the core and obliterate it at the very last second. Frustrated by the unfair matchup, our hero decides to dig through his memories for a solution. But before he can fully process his thoughts, a searing headache suddenly overwhelms him. By some stroke of luck, and a touch of plot armor, the robots ignore his opening. Thus, with memories of his past experiences flooding back, he comes up with a plan to give these ugly machines the beating they deserve. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Chanho and the vlogger kid make a desperate run for it, with the monstrous creature looming overhead. The two split up strategically, leaving the oversized brute confused about which one to pursue. Their plan is to loop back and re-enter the building where the oversized, uglier cousin of the Hulk can't follow. Despite the monster's massive arm reaching in an attempt to grab them, they manage to slip through, giving them a brief moment to catch their breath. When the creature eventually gives up, Chanho seizes the opportunity to make a break for it while he still can. On the other hand, our hero is busy leaping and darting between the divine machines in the other dimension, barely avoiding their relentless laser beams. His objective is to cause as much commotion as possible, drawing the attention of every nearby automaton. Once he's seemingly accomplished his goal, he runs far away from the swarm of heavenly beings, landing in an empty area of the forest. He finally stops, allowing the enemies to lock on and charge their laser attacks. But suddenly, one of the colossal robots falls to its knees. Ignoring their ally, the others prepare for their attack, but our demon lord sits cozy and flips a bird to the brain-dead machines. One by one, the lined-up group of machines topples, as the swamp whale reveals the reason behind the forest's name. A giant jaw emerges from the ground and devours the divine machines, one by one. Reliving his horrible memories, our boy casually watches from afar as the behemoth of a whale completes the challenge for him. With all 10 heavenly beings defeated, a congratulatory panel appears. In return, he receives his new rewards: enhanced physical abilities, boosted mana reserves, and the Dagger of Judgment. As the weapon materializes before him, he inspects its special ability. The system elaborates that the dagger works like a remote-controlled airplane within a 100-meter radius. Now that's a cool birthday present. After testing out his awesome new weapon, the ruler of hell decides to return to Earth. The scene shifts to a news broadcast from when the gate first opened. The anchor solemnly reports on the tragic fracture that has claimed many lives. He consults a pale professor who looks like the uncle who brings politics to birthday parties for a solution. The man points fingers at the Awakeners Association, claiming they are to blame for the disaster. He remarks that they take too many vacations and just put off problems. When there's a shortage of hunters, he stresses, fractures do not care if the hunters are chilling in Hawaii or on duty, so they should be held liable. We then see a guy with a man bun watching the news on his phone. Annoyed at the professor, frustrated, he comments that the association's hunters are paid peanuts compared to the clan's. Hearing his partner's whining, the team leader next to him tells him to focus on making results right now, or they could lose their jobs. But their conversation is cut short when they hear breaking news of a certain awakener having single-handedly dealt with the monsters. Back at the disaster site, Vlogger Boy and Chanho hide in a room, anxiously awaiting a rescue squad. Suddenly, a series of loud noises grabs their attention as the entire room begins to tremble. They cautiously attempt to peek outside, but before they can fully grasp the situation, the roof collapses, scaring the daylights out of them. Overwhelmed with fear, Chanho wonders if their time has come. But it turns out it's just a starving Dae-sung, standing triumphantly on the extra-large Hulk's beheaded remains. Chanho is delighted to see his friend when he most needs him. Despite his terrible condition, our boy smiles coolly. Noticing something off, his bestie asks if he's okay. Groaning in pain, the ruler of hell commands the fast food kid to cook up some meat for him. The two stare at him speechless, going crazy over him wanting to enjoy a grilled burger in a do-or-die situation. With no chicken in stock, our demon connoisseur analyzes if the monster meat is edible. He begins chowing down, making the other two nearly bend over and heave their empty guts out. Fortunately, a soldier shows up, making the vlogger boy euphoric that he will survive while our hero silently enjoys his meal. The soldier ignores the boy, who is viciously expressing his gratitude, and stares in awe before he can realize it's monster guts. Chanho comes in and distracts the soldier, introducing his pal. Chanho pulls away our hungry hero and urges him to eat his fill later. Unexpectedly, the soldier changes his attitude and explains they can't simply leave, so Chanho proudly brings out his clan ID card. Seeing the man's clan swag, the soldier smiles, ready to escort them to safety. Elsewhere, the man bun guy is busy emptying his guts after seeing the mutilated monster remains. Annoyed, the team leader shouts at him to find survivors instead of curling up on the ground like an insect. Man bun dude immediately talks a soldier into entering the restricted area, since he's an association hunter. Meanwhile, the graceful team leader ponders what kind of monstrous guy could tear up corpses like this. The scene shifts to the boys in Chanho's car. Our hero's best friend suggests that they sleep at his apartment, but being a family man, our boy stresses he needs to see his family. The best friend reminds him that his family would be terrified if he visited them in his current state. Taking a short look at himself, the ruler of hell decides to settle for a call with his mother. The two leave to enjoy some freshly fried chicken, after cleaning up of course. They finally reach Chanho's apartment, and our guy is impressed by its extravagance. After he cleans up, the two sit at the table with multiple expensive dishes lined up. Curious, our protagonist recalls his friend telling him about the insane money hunters make. Chanho affirms it, but also adds that hunters are scammers considering how much they're paid. When asked if he wants to become a hunter, our guy answers with a grunt while devouring a chicken wing whole. Slightly perturbed, Chanho informs his friend that he would be a pretty high rank if he gets himself appraised. He adds that with his insane power, our protagonist would not be less than an A rank. Confused by the terminology, our hero listens as Chanho explains that a better rank just means he can join the big clans. Regardless, he points out that the monthly income is crazy high. Intrigued, Dae-sung asks if there's a rank higher than a ton. Chanho reveals that there are only 5 of them among the 200 million awakened worldwide, the S-rankers. Grinning mischievously, Chanho jokes that his best friend shouldn't dream of becoming the 6th S rank, claiming that A rank is great enough. He probes again if our hero intends to become a hunter. Agreeing, Chanho promises to help with everything, and the two bros toast to the occasion. The scene transitions to some mobsters eating in a fancy restaurant. A strange guy with long hair repeats his words to a bald gangster, who is terribly scared of him. The guy repeats himself, wondering if it's true that a whole organization was taken down by a single hooded boy on his tablet. Wiping his lips elegantly, he jokes that it truly is embarrassing. The brown-haired man, manager of the Hongma clan, Lee Siako, gets up and asks why Baldy didn't run away and come crying to him. One of the good guys, Baldy, begs, trembling intensely as the guy puts his hand on his shoulder with a chilling look on his face. He then asks if Baldy is vibrating because of the dead body across the room, making the gangster sweat bullets. Tearing up, Baldy pleads with Siako not to execute him like the body lying just a few meters away. Gently petting Baldy's head, Siako calmly explains that all he cares about is the stolen money. He makes it clear he plans to take the gang's hidden stash as well, but Baldy, paralyzed by fear, plays dumb. Terrified, Baldy remains silent as Siako quietly decides his fate. Unexpectedly, the long-haired man steps away, claiming to trust Baldy's word, but of course mere moments after expressing gratitude for the information, the evenly shaved bald head in Siaku's hand explodes. Siaku barely acknowledges the gushing fountain of blood as he casually picks up his tablet, showing a picture of Dae-sung. He orders a woman lurking in the shadows to hunt down the culprit neatly. Meanwhile, our boy finally visits the Hunters Association. Chanho advises him to enter the awakening test, but when our guy brushes him off, Chanho reminds him to speak formally unless he wants to look like an outcast. Nervous, like a dad waiting for his kid's test results, Chanho requests that he text him the outcome once it's done. Approaching the front gate, our boy surveys the odd crowd of weirdos who've also come to apply. Focused on the paycheck, he brushes off his peers and heads straight into lab number 3. After securing a spot in the waiting line, he checks his phone and sees a message from his mother asking when he'll be coming home. Not wanting to worry her, he responds that he'll take a shower and be home very slowly. Like all moms, she also asks if he's eating well, making our boy smile and look forward to heading home even more. His wholesome moment is cut short when a clerk informs him that it's his turn. With that, a delusional old man starts whining that he's awakened, despite the employee's reassurances that the meter is functioning properly. The old man refuses to stop his loud complaints. He goes on to claim that losing his hair overnight is proof of his awakening, causing everyone previously annoyed to burst out laughing. Into laughter, the stubborn man declares he won't budge until his complaint is acknowledged. Growing tired of the wait, my guy grabs the man's shiny scalp and silences him with an overwhelming aura. Even then, the old man persists, insisting the meter really is broken. So, the gracious Demon King gives him the benefit of the doubt, and a hunter offers to check it personally. As he hovers his hand over the orb, it sparks and turns green, showing that he is a C rank. Embarrassingly shut down, the old man sweats profusely. The clerk lady gladly shows the geezer his way out. Clearly shown to be a pud, the old man keeps whining in denial, making our boy cringe. Finally, his turn arrives. The clerk lady gossips to her colleague about our hero perhaps being the top rank of the day since she saw his terrifying aura, but he just dismisses her with a bonk on the head. With the full support of the cute clerk lady, our hero approaches the manometer. A sudden chaos unfolds at the Korean Hunter Association, with commotion erupting all around. The branch manager begins receiving urgent calls directing him to visit examination room 3 on the 6th floor immediately. Growing suspicious at the abrupt nature of the call, he wonders if perhaps a 6th S-rank hunter has awakened. However, he quickly dismisses the thought, considering it impossible. Upon reaching the 6th floor, he makes his way to examination room 3. Only to find a large crowd already gathered there. Pushing his way through the throng of people, he finally sees what has caused the disturbance. The crystal meter orb is shattered, resembling the fractured shell of an egg. The manager grows anxious and immediately seeks an explanation from his employees about the situation. The staff quickly fills him in. A man named Dae-sung had placed his hand on the crystal ball for examination. At first, the colors within the orb flickered unpredictably. Then, without warning, it exploded in a burst of smoke, leaving both staff and onlookers in sheer confusion. Frustration builds within the manager as he responds, insisting the explanation could be as simple as a defective meter. However, the staff points out that they used 3 different crystal meters, and each had met the same fate. Hearing this, the manager concedes, realizing it is impossible for all of them to be faulty. Meanwhile, our boy anxiously hopes he won't be asked to compensate for the 3 shattered crystal balls. With that worry on his mind, he turns to the manager and inquires about his results, only to be met with the manager's confusion. The manager then informs Dae-sung that continuing to use additional meters could lead to the same explosive outcome. He mentions that this is the first time they've encountered such an unusual situation, and because of this, they would have to make a borderline judgment. He goes on to explain that in cases where the crystal ball fails to provide a proper assessment, the results of the license test alone will suffice to evaluate him. Normally, the test would be just one part of the rank determination process, but in Dae-sung's case, it will serve as the sole deciding factor. Dae-sung, still unsure, questions the reliability of the license test. Before anyone else can answer, a staff member steps in with a detailed explanation of how the examination system functions, assuring him to ease his concerns on that matter. With nothing else left to do but wait, the Demon Lord gives a nod, accepts their proposal, and quietly takes his leave. The branch manager finds the entire situation troubling, still trying to make sense of what transpired. Meanwhile, the clerk who had earlier discussed the crystal ball's mechanism suggests a theory. She proposes that the crystal ball might be incapable of measuring power beyond a certain threshold. The manager, growing more curious, asks if she's implying that Dae-sung could be at a triple S rank. To this the clerk nods in agreement. However, her colleague quickly mocks the notion, pointing out that while anything is possible in this unpredictable world, he seriously doubts the idea of Dae-sung reaching a triple S rank. The scene shifts to Dae-sung as he steps out of the Hunter Association building, his thoughts still on the events that just transpired. His phone rings, it's his friend Chan-ho on the other end. Dae-sung informs him that he's been given borderline status for the time being, finding the situation odd. Chan-ho asks if the meter got stuck. Dae-sung, with a hint of amusement, explains that it actually broke for some reason. Knowing Dae-sung's tendency for chaos, Chan-ho jokes about whether he's been messing around but quickly dismisses the idea, figuring it shouldn't have been possible. Dae-sung assures Chan-ho that he followed the instructions carefully, placing his hand on the meter just as he was told. At this, Chan-ho retorts, mentioning that he had a gut feeling something strange would happen from the start. Dae-sung promises to share more details about the exam later, and with that the call ends. Moments after hanging up, however, the Demon Lord's sharp, horned senses kick in. He immediately detects the presence of a sniper positioned far away, finger already resting on the trigger aiming straight at him. The sniper lady mumbles about Dae-sung, noting that he does not appear strong at all. She feels confident that he will